sound better.
So Moses here with w.a.production. Now in this video we're going to be looking at some of the hottest new plugins that have been released in the month of January. We might catch the tail end of December because there were a few great ones launched then, and I always think it's really good to have a solid set of new plugins in your library to inspire creativity and to kind of encourage you to use your old plugins in ways that you might not have thought. So without further ado, let's get cracking with the first one. So first up we have Hornet Sync Compressor. Now this is a really cool compressor that kind of gives you the actual time and beat divisions, and it syncs up to the tempo of your project. Now this is super useful when you're trying to do sidechaining or really precise drum processing, because you can actually see the kind of beat division of the attack and release settings, and you can get a really musical, really rhythmic compression kind of active on your channels. So you see here I've just got it active on my drums channel, and now this is from a new track of mine called I'll Show You the Dark, which I'm going to be using to demo some of these plugins with today. Now this is it with it turned off. You can really see that just flicking through some of the beat divisions can give you a much quicker and much more responsive feeling in the compression that you're using. Now we'll quickly dive into a bit of what the compressor does, and we'll kind of see a bit more of what it can do. So it is pretty much just a standard compressor. You have your threshold dial here, you have your ratio down here, you've got your input volume here, you then have your attack and release settings down here. You can then choose to double them or triple them. You then have your output volume of the compressor. You then have your tempo mode up here, which you can set to manual and change yourself, or you can sync and then it will stay there, or you can set it to detect. And then as you play through the track, it will supposedly find your tempo. But I mean, we're all working in software that has the tempo already set, so it's probably not really that necessary. We can just keep it in our sync setting. We then have our knee, we then have a sidechain option, internal or external. You then have oversampling, sidechain filter, RMS, on or off, feedback. Don't really know what that does. And then unlink left and right, and then just the dry wet of the compression if you want to get some parallel compression kind of active. So it is super useful for drums. I personally would probably use it for parallel compression. So if you have your kind of an uncompressed signal, you can layer this compressor in underneath and really get precise with the time values that you want. So you can just let through the initial pop transients of your drums, which can result in a much fuller, much more punchy drum sound that you can kind of balance as you wish with the main drum sound, rather than just having a very clicky drum sound. So this is a great compressor for that kind of thing, and now we'll just look at it for the sidechaining functionalities. So now I've got the compressor set up in sidechain mode on my bass group, and we'll just play through the track without the compressor working, just to see what it sounds like beforehand. So now I will just simply start lowering the threshold, and we'll increase the ratio to about 5. Now obviously that's too aggressive on the preset settings that it opens up with. So we'll just tweak it, and I'll just show you the capabilities and the kind of musicality and rhythmicality that this compressor can bring to your sidechaining options. I do want a little bit of the bass to come through the initial sub hits, so I'm going to kind of set it to 6 lead notes, and then on the release we're going to have a pretty quick release, and let's see how that sounds now. So you can hear that even when you go really aggressive with the attack and the release time, it still remains rhythmical and musical, which is such a great feature for a plugin. I find a lot of the time when I'm doing sidechain compression, I have to go and work out the milliseconds of the tempo I'm at, and it's just an extra bit of faff that kind of gets in the way of your productivity and your creativity when it comes to kind of music production, and especially mixing. You know, the last thing we want to do when we're in the zone of a mix is go and do some calculations. I mean, we're music producers, we're not accountants at the end of the day. So Compressor is an amazing plugin, and it's definitely worth the investment. I think at the moment it's under $50 or under £50 on their website, which is linked in the description, so make sure to go and check it out. Next up on the list we have Black Rooster's RO140. Black Rooster are a really cool plugin company. They do a lot of analog emulations of old gear. You should definitely go and check out all of their plugins, and for this one they've just launched the RO140, which is an emulation of the EMT 140, which is a classic plate reverb. So let's jump in and we'll hear how it sounds on some drums and some vocals. So here's the drums dry. And now I'll slowly add in the reverb as I play through, so we can start to hear how it works and how it reacts. You can already hear it's got this like super nice metal sheen to the sound, which is classic from a plate reverb. Let's dive in and have a little look at some of the settings that we can play with. Over here you have the damper, which is pretty much just the decay of the plate. So as you increase it, the plate will get larger. So we'll just set it to 10 and I'll just play through so you can hear what I mean. You also have your bass cut knob down here, which you can increase and decrease the amount of bass that you're allowing into the sound. So you can hear the lower settings are really great for maybe drum room sounds that you want quite a reflective surface, and then the larger you get would be good for pads and maybe big epic airy vocals if you wanted to use it for that. We then have this knob over here which kind of changes the metallic quality. So you've got titanium, gold, silver, bronze, aluminium and steel. So I'll just cycle through as the track plays just so you can kind of hear what they sound like. So you can hear that it kind of gives you some really cool and interesting textures just by changing the metals that the plate is reacting with. Let's also have a look at some of the other settings that are the more common ones that you do find in a lot of reverbs. So you have your low amount, your mid amount and your high amount. You then have your pre-delay here. You then have your size. Which kind of increases and decreases the stereo field of the reverb. And then you just have your dry wet knob here. It also sounds pretty cool on some vocals, so let's check that out. I have a dry vocal sample, and this vocal's from one of our sample packs. You can find a whole host of different and varied sample packs on our site. Just go and check them out. There's everything from drum kits to bass lines to vocal packs to third-party packs, and I think all of these things are really great for kind of inspiring inspiration and adding some extra flair and extra professionalism to your track. So let's jump in and let's see how the RO140 works with these vocals. So here's the vocal dry.
You have come such a long way, don't give up on me now.
And now we'll just add the reverb on. I've got it on Ascend, so we'll just add it in at 0 dB on the channel.
You have come such a long way, don't give up on me now.
That is just the basic preset, and you can hear how much air and life it brings to that vocal without kind of cluttering up the mix. I find that a lot of reverbs, when you add a vocal to them, kind of take up a lot of space and don't quite add that shine that you want to a vocal. So this is great for that, and I'm going to experiment with some of the settings so we can just hear how it reacts on the different presets to the vocal.
You have come such a long way, Don't give up on me now. You have come such a long way. Don't give up on me now.
A really great reverb and definitely worth checking out. This one is also linked down in the description, and at the moment they have an introductory offer, so definitely worth checking out and adding to your collection. So next up we have Puncher 2 Lite, which is one of our very own plugins. This is a simplified version of its bigger brother, Puncher 2. A great plugin for adding a lot of, well, punch to your sounds. We're going to take a little deep dive into this, and again we're using a loop from one of our sample packs. If you are interested in these plugins and samples, you can of course buy them from the site, or alternatively we now have a membership program set up, and there are 3 tiers with a whole range of different options, and some of the top options allow you access to all of these plugins for free. So that's also linked down below and worth checking out if you just want monthly access to sounds and new plugins as they arrive. But for now, let's jump into Puncher 2 Lite and let's see how it responds to this drum loop. So I currently have everything bypassed on the plugin, and I'm just going to play it through and we'll just see how it sounds. So that's just the drum loop by itself, and now I'm going to start adding in some of the transient. You notice how it's one of those subtle things that when you're increasing the value of the transients, you don't really notice it, but then as soon as you turn it off, you just suddenly lose all of this punch and clarity that you got from the transient shaper. We'll take a little look at the multiband section now and see how that responds to the drum loop. You can hear it adds a lot of nice brightness to the loop and really kind of brings up some of those qualities that you want in a professional sounding drum kit. So you can really hear how the parallel kind of brings the sound back under control and kind of compensates for the gain that we add with the transients and the multiband compressor. This is currently free and available on our store, so it's linked below for you to go and check out and put into your own productions. Next up we have Drive Shaper. Now this is part of the Shaperbox plugin group by Cable Guys. This has been around for a little bit, but the Drivebox recently got added just at the end of December, so it's made its way into this list because it's freaking awesome. I am a massive fan of distortion and overdrive things, and especially ones that do it in a creative and fresh approach, I am all for. So I've got a little simple bass patch going on here, and I'm just gonna mess around with the drive so you can see the kind of capabilities. We won't get into the other areas of the unit because there are quite a few, and some of them have been released before this, but this is definitely a plugin that is worth checking out. You can do tons of manipulation with it, and it's linked in the description should you want to go and get it. You open up the unit and you get confronted with the different options. You have time option, the drive option, which is what we're going to be focusing on in this video. You have the filter, the crush, the volume, pan and width. Let's go into the drive area. I'm going to play you the bass now, just as it is, without anything happening on here. Now you have a few different areas in this. One thing that I really like is this multi-band area here, which you can just choose your bands here and here, and then if you select the bands, each one of these has its own independent controls, which is just so cool. Multi-band distortion enables you to get some really unique and really intense distortion and really pinpoint where you want the distortion to happen. Sometimes we might not want tons of distortion happening in the low end, we might just want it in the mid. So this is really useful for that kind of stuff. Just for now, I'm just going to lower this down again, so we just have one single band. You then have your input and your output values. You then have your drive amount. You then have your grip, which controls how the distortion reacts to the quiet parts of the waveforms. You then have your style of distortion here, your accent, your tone, your mix, LFOs, MIDI triggers, the length of this sequencer here, so you can draw in various shapes, which we'll get into in a minute, and I'll show you how you can use this to really get some completely wacky sounds. You then have your different drawing options for when you're making your shapes, and you have some presets down here. Let's get into it and we'll start making some sounds. So you can see that as we cycle through the multiband sections, we also have a change in the modulation sequencer window. So you can create completely different patterns depending on the band that you have. So this is only a very, very quick little dive into this plugin, but you should definitely 100% go and check this out if you want some crazy sound manipulation capabilities. And then you can add in the other elements. I said I'm not going to get too into this, but you can add in filters which have similar kind of patterns where you can draw in the filters that you want. You then have a kind of time thing here. And then you have kind of crush and pan and volume where you can kind of do stutters and bit crush sounds. So that pretty much sums it up for this video. We're going to be doing one of these every month, so if you want to stay up to date with some of the hottest and freshest plugins that you can get, make sure to subscribe to this channel and ding the little notification bell to be notified when a new video is uploaded. Until the next one, peace out.